confirmed that the aliens have landed. It's been confirmed that the aliens have landed.
What is up, everyone? It is Reviews Kingdom, and today I am back at it again with another review. And, well, before I start this video, I just want to say this. The other day, I recently went on a leisurely walk, just to clear my mind a little bit. Life be getting the best of me sometimes, whether it be stress from work, just stress from life in general, just a lot of problems. Life can really just get the best of you sometimes.
This looks like a good place to jump.
But in that leisurely walk, ladies and gentlemen, it suddenly hit me like a freight train that I was walking away from my biggest responsibility yet. That being the Skillet Retrospective. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are heading back on down to the Skillet Retrospective. In this edition, we are going to be taking a look at the fourth studio album, Alien Youth, which released all the way back in 2001. Now, in the last edition of the retrospective, we covered the album Invincible, and well, I kind of felt like in retrospective that their record really isn't that bad, but at the same time, it fell short of being anything that was above average. There were a few blunders here and there that really kept it from being anything that was above average. But, it seemed like Skillet was actually heading in the right direction with that album. You can actually have a sense that they were changing their style up and that they were heading in the right direction. So it actually made me more excited to go into Alien Youth to see if they would continue to improve their craft. Now, something that did kind of keep me from being a little too excited was the fact that this album came out a mere year later after Invincible came out. You see, Invincible came out in 2000. This album came out in 2001, so I was already kind of having a bit of skepticism because this thing, for all I know, could just be a rushed piece of garbage. But at the same time, it could have some merit. We just never know. The only true way to find out is to actually take a look at the album itself. So, without further ado, let's take a look at Skillet's Alien Youth, shall we?
In the last edition of the Skillet Retrospective, we covered the album Invincible, and as mentioned before, it was pretty mediocre to say the least. But hey, that's not to say that the album didn't have its own charms here and there. For starters, the production was a lot better and full of energy, and John Cooper as a vocalist seems like he was heading in the right direction too. Of course, it had its own problems here and there, but overall, it really wasn't that bad of an album, I'd say. Now, before we fast forward to 2001, I have to mention that the lineup for the band at this point in their career has changed yet again. This time around, it was the guitarist Kevin Holland.
A band losing a band member can either be a tragic situation, as they could be extremely talented, or it could just be a situation where the band member left on their own creative terms and are still cool with the band as a whole. But it's like I always say, they can't all be winners. Every single band member, at least one of them is bound to leave at some point. They can't always be sticking around for the entire discography. In Devin Holland's case, he stuck around one album for Skillet, and after that one album, he decided, yep, I can't take this Skillet shit no more, and he left the band. And well, we will get to the reasoning later in the video, but as for right now, let's just continue the video, shall we?
As a guitarist, I would say Kevin did an okay job. His riffs were good, but nothing too memorable. But at the same time, that might have to do with the fact that his riffs got lost in the mixing of Invincible from time to time, which is the problem I had with Invincible as a whole. But still, even saying that, I still prefer Ken Stroat's because he brought in some more interesting and melodic riffs that sounded a lot more varied and diverse in his range. But don't get it twisted, Kevin wasn't bad at all. He actually left the band because he wanted to be in a place where he can be more creative. Which, yeah, that's pretty telling a Skillet if you ask me. But anyways, who went on to replace Kevin, you may be asking? And the answer to that would be none other than Ben Kosika, who served as the band's new guitarist. And now, fast forwarding to 2001, the album Alien Youth releases, and Okay, hold up, stop the recording.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, we need to stop the video right here to have a very serious discussion. we need to have a discussion about what the actual fuck is this album cover. No, seriously. Answer me this question right here. What is this album's cover supposed to be? Is it supposed to be alien-like? What is it supposed to be? Now, okay, to be completely fair, it isn't as stupid as Invincible, and it isn't as confusing as Hey You, I Love Your Soul. But at the same time, this is just as lazy. It's just a picture of John Cooper's face. And it's like, oh, that's so alien-like. I guess that's the whole kind of mentality that they were going for. But you know what? I think I spent too much time talking about the album cover. So why don't we actually talk about the album itself, shall we? God, I'm getting too angry at this stupid shit.
The album's sound and tone still stick to the industrial/techno rock sound, but in this album, things are a little bit different as they went from industrial rock to industrial metal, in which it borrows heavily from Nine Inch Nails. Now, I did mention before that Hey You, I Love Your Soul kinda went for that vibe as well, but in this album, it's way more noticeable than before. And look, I get that Nine Inch Nails didn't invent the whole industrial metal act, but it's very clear throughout the album that John Cooper and the gang here are going more for a Trent Reznor vibe. But regardless of that, despite this album taking elements from industrial from the album Invincible, these two records couldn't be more different. And what's crazy is that this album came out a whole year after Invincible. Invincible was more prog and more of a lighthearted and straightforward album. Alien Youth, on the other hand, is way angstier in comparison. The production and mixing is a lot less polished and way more rougher sounding in comparison. And to be honest, I think that's for the better. Alien Youth sounds leaves it more open to more creativity and less cheesiness overall. The songs in this album talk about more darker subject matter than any other album that Skillet has put out in this point in their career. Yeah, the cheese is still there, but I'll be damned if I didn't say I enjoyed this album sonically a lot better than Invincible. The sound and production really pack a punch with most of the songs, and it's way more tonally consistent than its predecessors. Though I feel like some of the mixing made things a little too loud. Yeah, I'm talking about this again, but it's true. Distortion is one thing, but distortion that didn't come from the album is a whole nother thing. Maybe it's because my speakers suck, but god damn can this album be ridiculously loud. At some points, it just borders on the territory of being just noise, but thankfully it's something that I didn't really notice too often, but when it's there, I just kind of instinctively shake my head in disappointment as my eardrums slowly fade away from the sound of its screaming guitar that resembles my pain and agony every day as I awake. Speaking of improving, it sounds like John Cooper as a vocalist has improved as well. In my opinion, this is helped by the authenticity of his voice, as well as some of the songwriting on this album, which I will get to in a bit. He sounds a lot more sincere and way more confident than he was before, even more confident than he was in Invincible. He doesn't really exactly have much range, so to speak, but I think for the material that he's working with, I think he does a well enough job throughout the entire album to keep me hooked and interested. His vocal melodies here are a lot more stronger and diverse, which really helps shake things up in this album as a whole. I especially dig his style on the track Vapor, as for the first time, John Cooper is actually showing more genuine talent on this track than he ever has at this point in his career. Sure, he's still cheesy and clunky as hell, but when he tries, it works so goddamn well you just wish you would see more of this talent. And he does have more moments of triumph on this album, don't get me wrong. But in my opinion, what really holds him back is the writing. Unlike other vocalists I talked about on this channel, John Cooper's voice at this point still can't sell even the worst of lyrics. John has stated that in interviews that this album, and most importantly the song Alien Youth, is supposed to be an anthem for the new generation of Christians, who are referred to as the Alien Youth, as this generation would take over Christianity and bring new life to it. The problem with that is, John Cooper is not the voice of a generation. He can be talented at times, sure, but the voice of a generation he is not. And I've also never really particularly cared for his bass skills. The bass lines just never seem memorable or that special. He's not really terrible, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I can't even notice that there's a bass line there to begin with. Which, once again, might be the mixing of the album, but I digress. Wow, I'm really starting to think that Skillet just kind of sucks at mixing their own albums. But anyways, let's continue. Now, it's at this point in the video where I talk about the lyrics, and you're probably expecting me to say that the songwriting is not good. And, well, it's certainly great, but for once there's actually decent songwriting here. Like, genuinely. Of course, most of the problems I have with Skillet as songwriters is still present, but there are some songs that have some genuine merit here. One of my favorite songs off the album is called Vapor, which is a genuinely solid track with some strong hooks and some solid writing. I'll play you a small clip of the song just so you can listen for yourself. You might hate it, you might like it, but as for where I stand, I think this is the most creative that they've ever sounded thus far. I mean, god damn, those are some pretty hard-ass lyrics for a band like Skillet to be singing. Another example is the song Eating Me Away, which is actually pretty dark in comparison to anything Skillet has put out in this point in their career. The song itself talks about a person who feels insignificant and worried that they're leaving behind a legacy of absolutely nothing, and that consumes them to a point where the person cries out for help, trying to have someone save them from the nothingness of being. Once again, this is a pretty edgy song, but for once, I am finally glad Skillet took a step outside of their comfort zone and tried writing a song that is different from the other 3 albums that spoke about pretty much the same thing. The Thirst Is Taking Over is a lesser example, a track that is solid enough, relying on repetition and vagueness throughout the track, but it's still one of the more effective tracks on the album. Not to mention, it's by far the best ballad on the album, bar none. As for the title track itself, I do like the whole idea of the next generation of Christians being referred to as the alien youth, as I do find it as pretty cool as a metaphor. My only problem with the song lies in the lyric "We're coming from your soul," which really just kind of complicates things. Like, I thought this was a song about Christians redefining Christianity, not people looking to suck the souls of innocent people. But besides that blunder, it's an okay start to the album. Not as strong as Best Kept Secret, but I'll take it. As for the rest of the album, every other song lyrically speaking ranges from meh to okay. One of the more irritating songs has got to be Kill Me, Heal Me. A song that blatantly relies on repetition, and it gets old real fast. Kill Me, Heal Me is a lyric that's pretty metal, but the problem lies in with the fact that there is nothing else to it. It doesn't even feel like an actual song to me because of how uninteresting it really is. Like, yeah, technically it's a song, but I hesitate to call it a good one. And as the song implies, it just goes on and on until it finally reaches its conclusion. But to me, nothing even comes close to the straight up awfulness of 2 tracks that are known as Stronger and Rippin' Me Off.
Now, I get the impression that some people watching my videos might be thinking, wow, this guy is a snob. Wow, this guy is a pretentious asshole. Why can't he just shut up and enjoy the music? And well, you know, me personally, I can totally see where that kind of rhetoric comes from. And truth be told, I try my best not to be a snob, you know. I try my best to find a balance of actually enjoying the music while actually acknowledging if it's good or bad. And like I said before, I try my best, people. I try my best not to be a snob, you know. Not to really worry about it too much. But, yeah. But fuck it, these lyrics asked for it, so I'm gonna go over them right now. Let's fucking do this. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the section of the video I am unofficially dubbing Lyrical Blunders. Songs that may or may not have been fully thought through when written or recorded in the studio. In this edition of Lyrical Blunders, we are going to be taking a look at 2 of the most undoubtedly worst written songs on Skillet's Alien Youth. Let me just whip out my handy dandy lyrical sheet, shall I? Okay, let's fast forward on down to Rippin' Me Off. They say Jesus is doing nothing. They say evolution took his place. And here comes my favorite lyric. You say that God is dead, but you're ripping me off. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, that's not the end of it. Because we have the song Stronger. Because he's stronger, yeah. Than the devil, yeah. Just great lyricism. I mean, Skillet just knocks it out of the park. And, well, time to cut the game show bullshit. Yeah, these 2 songs were, it just boggles my mind how badly written these are. And look, I have to reiterate this. It's not because these songs are Christian that they're bad. It's just that, well, there's really nothing to them. They wrote like 2 lyrics for the song and just called it a day. It's not a song. It's just a phrase. And it's really repetitive and redundant, people. Just, God. I was actually kind of liking this album, man. I was actually kind of liking this album.
Not only do these songs rely on blatant repetition, but the lyrics are just bad. They are so bad. They're corny as hell and just overall badly written. Stronger just repeats the same chorus over and over again, and it just beats you over the face with its lack of originality or substance to it. Just John singing about how he's stronger than the devil. Absolutely impressive. Ripping Me Off is somehow even worse, as it's a song that's basically just God's Not Dead in the form of a song. And look, I have nothing against Skillet's beliefs, that's really not my problem here. The problem is that the song just really isn't written that well. It's just John listing off doubts of non-Christian people and saying that they're ripping him off as if they're trying to sell him car insurance or something. This song also kind of has the same attitude as the track You Thought on the self-titled album. It has the smugness of that track, but the difference is that You Thought doesn't rely on blatant repetition from the same three lyrics, and it has a pretty nice melody to kind of balance it out. However, Rippin' Me Off comes off as a badly mixed, badly written song that has no actual cohesion and is obnoxiously loud. And that's exactly what I mean by songs that are way too loud for their own good. I do like plenty of heavy metal music, but once again, once the distortion can be way overblown, it can make the track feel overbearing, and songs like Rippin' Me Off are further examples of that. And to close off this album, the track Come My Way finishes off the album, and it's pretty painfully average for a closer.
You know, to me, it's songs like Come My Way that are just so inoffensive that they become offensive. Offensive to my ears, that is. You see, it's just a shame that this album has to end on such a whimper of a song, because this album has shown that it does have a lot of potential to it, especially in the ballad department. We had songs like You Are My Hope and The Thirst Is Taking Over. Songs like You Are My Hope actually had a chorus and a hook that actually made it memorable, and those songs also had, well, energy to them that actually made them stand out from the rest of the songs. But Come My Way is just such a nothing burger of a song that it's debatably kind of worse than some of the worst tracks on this album, because, well, it's just so average. And in my opinion, sometimes an average song is worse than a bad song, because at least something like Rippin' Me Off or Stronger has something that I can remember. The lyrics are just terrible. They're terrible, believe me when I say it. But songs like Come My Way are just like, nah, it's whatever. It's just, well, it's there. And it's also the last track on the album, so that kind of sucks and kind of dampens the impact of this album as a whole. But, you know, well, it's not all doom and gloom at least. But anyways, let's continue with the review, shall we?
As far as the instrumentation goes, I'd say I'd like this one a bit more in comparison to Invincible, because as mentioned before, the instrumentation is a lot more hard-hitting and a lot more impactful than it was in Invincible. It really just sells the whole vibe of the album, and I think it works effectively enough. Ben Kosaka as a guitarist is also a pretty solid guitarist, bringing in some pretty gnarly sounding riffs that go in a long way in making the tracks feel like they have weight to them, and the hooks are also very interesting for the most part. So yeah, not really much to say here, but the band's overall performance is pretty decent, outside of John Cooper's lacking bass presence, of course.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so what do I think of Skillet's Alien Youth as a whole? And well, I gotta say, I'm happy to report that my expectations with this album were actually met. Those expectations weren't really high to begin with, but the fact that they were met at all is honestly just, it puts a smile on my face, guys. I'm really happy. Just look at me right here. But now, remember, as I mentioned before, that Invincible, they changed up their style a little bit, and they showed signs of improvement. The album was still mediocre in the end of the day, but they were showing signs of improvement, and I'm happy to report that in Alien Youth, the improvement continues just little by little. They changed up their sound once more, kind of again to a more industrial Nine Inch Nails vibe, kind of like what they were doing with Hey You I Love Your Soul, except 10 times better than that. You know, the album is a lot less polished than Invincible. It's more grittier, it's more rougher, it's more edgier, and to be fair, I think that fits the tone of the album very well, because in this album, Skillet talks about a lot more darker subject matter than what they usually talk about on their albums to begin with. It's not anything groundbreaking or anything too deep, but you know what, I'll take what I can get when it comes to writing that actually leaves a mark. And the production on this album actually feels like it packs more of a punch than the previous albums ever did, and I feel like that's something that helps this album in the long run. Now, of course, this album is still just decent. It's nothing remarkable because there are some things that do bog it down. The lyrics, we've already discussed this before, Skillet or not master lyricist. The song structure itself can just be outright repetitive, and the lyrics, well, can also be downright repetitive. Seriously, the repetitiveness of this album just carried on from Invincible, and it just got even worse with this album. Seriously, I don't recommend Kill Me, Heal Me. There's really nothing about that song that I really like to begin with. But overall, I still think that this album is pretty decent, and it makes me even more excited to see what their next album has to offer, because this one just showed them improving their craft with each and every song. Not every song is a victory, and I completely get that, and not every song leaves a packing punch like some of the songs like Eating Me Away does. But at the same time, I still feel like that this is a pretty decent album in its own right. As for my final rating on this album, I would have to give it a 6 out of 10. Like I said before, nothing remarkable, but I didn't exactly hate myself for listening to it, and I can't really say that I regretted listening to it, because, well, I kind of actually am glad that I listened to it, because it's an album that kind of holds up from when I remember first listening to it, but at the same time, it kind of doesn't. But, you know, it is what it is. I'll take what I can get with these albums. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video. Goodbye.